Hello, everyone. My name is David Quintanilla, and I am the CCC MyPath Professional Development Coordinator. It looks like there were some audio issues at the beginning of the presentation, so let me go ahead and start my spiel all over again. Just want to let you know that we are currently recording this session to be posted on our website within 5 business days of today, so make sure you check on there. You should all be in listen-only mode, which it looks like you're using the chat function, because I can see there's several questions in there about the sound, so we know that that part is working. I just want to take a moment to introduce you to our speakers. First up, we have Mike Caruso, who is the CCC MyPath Product Manager. Joining him is David Williams from MZ. He is the Vice President for Client Services and will be speaking about Career Coach. During our presentation today, Mike will be providing an overview of CCC MyPath. In addition, David will be providing information on Career Coach, and then we will be answering some questions regarding that you may have. Now, for those Q&A portions, since you are in a listen-only mode, please make sure that you put any questions you may have in the chat box, so that way you can go ahead and get those answered. Our objectives for today will be to Mike's going to share a little bit about how MyPath can solve the problems of learning onboarding in alignment with Guided Pathways Pillar 1 and the high attrition between application and enrollment. Dave Williams will be supplying some information regarding the Career Coach application and its usage and value to CCC MyPath. And then, of course, once again, we'll be answering any questions. So with that out of the way, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And Mike, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Great. Do I sound okay?
You sound great.
Perfect. Okay. So I want to take a moment out of our allotted presentation time here and kind of explain what I'll be talking about today. My assumption is that the majority of folks who are in attendance today have probably in some capacity seen MyPath already. We know that there are probably a number of questions that are floating around in the field right now around the status of the product going forward with regards to renewal of funding and sort of what the future of MyPath is. And so I want to make sure that we start things off here today by sort of assuring everybody that MyPath isn't going anywhere. We did get approached by the Chancellor's Office to contract with our existing team to continue the development of MyPath. And so all of that is being worked out still. But the good news is that our team will continue to build functionality in MyPath. We'll continue to support it with the current funding model and the current pricing for all the colleges, which is to say that it will continue to be free. And all around, it's really just good news for everybody. So if folks had concerns coming in here about whether there was a possibility of the product getting sort of pulled out from underneath them, or whether they should start implementing it or not as a result of this uncertainty, I hope that this will sort of assuage some of those fears and let you guys all know that we have colleges that are successfully using MyPath today with their students. We have many more colleges who are currently implementing the product, and we hope that folks on the call today will sort of see the value in it and decide to implement it for themselves if their college is not doing so already. Because, as I mentioned, there is certainly no end in sight for the product, and that's an exciting thing for everybody, I think. So, with all that said, and please feel free to share questions in the chat if you have them. I'm going to give a really condensed sort of overview of MyPath today before handing it off to Dave for his coverage of Career Coach, because I know that there's less information about that out there, and so hopefully folks will derive some value from that. But in terms of describing how MyPath can help your learners and your incoming students, the best way to cover that is to start with a problem statement. And that is that we've done some analysis of the incoming applications into the system electronically. So applications that are coming into the California Community College system by way of CCC Apply. And in terms of the total number of applications that are successfully submitted, so that means the student has gone all the way through the process, has filled out everything that is required of them in the application, and then push submit. 71% of those applicants do not then enroll in a college, in a California community college. So that's over 1.5 million total students are getting through the application, which I think is certainly a process that is not the shortest thing they could be doing. And they're submitting the application, but then they are not taking that next step to enroll in college. And so that caused us to kind of look at the total user experience. And what we determined is there's a pretty obvious hole in the student workflow that occurs between the application and the student beginning to use local college tools. For some colleges who are less technically prepared for a large number of applicants, or especially during times of the year when application submissions are really heavy, sometimes it can take a day or two for a student to receive an email with a set of next steps. So you're basically taking a student who is using the strongest terms available to them, going through this full application, telling you they want to come to college there. You're letting them close their web browser upon submitting that application, and then not getting back to them for a couple of days, and hoping that they check their email, hoping that they follow whatever instructions are in that email, hoping that they follow through and enroll in classes. And so, we wanted to figure out a way to help colleges solve for that. And so MyPath is kind of the way that we're suggesting that we solve for that. And so what you can actually do is you can set MyPath up so that students, upon completing their application, flow into an onboarding process that you control in MyPath. So the UI that you're seeing here on the screen is the experience they would get. Obviously, this is a demonstration college, so it's not branded for anybody specifically, but you would have total control over the colors, the images, the text up here in the name. And once a student gets here, you'll find a UI that is built specifically on feedback from California community college students. And what we learned after talking to them is that they dislike the notion and the practice of being dropped into a new web experience where they are expected to figure out what is expected.
Mike, we lost you midway.
The UI, I'm sorry about that. There might have been a blip in my audio. Do I sound okay still?
Yep, you're good still.
Okay, great. The UI is built in a highly prescriptive manner where you can show them a series of task lists that will lay out for them what you're expecting of your incoming students. So here in this, sample, we've got orientation and explore careers as the first two sets of steps that you want your students to go through. So we'll click on the explore careers one. And what you'll see on this screen is basically a number of steps where you can explain to your students what it is they're going to be doing and why they're going to be doing it, and how long it's going to take for them to complete all of this. And that's actually broken down per step as well. What we found in doing research with our students was that oftentimes they expect that they might be completing activities like this while they're on break at work, while they are, maybe they put the kids to bed and they've only got a few minutes before they need to go to sleep themselves. And so they only have a certain amount of time to give to this kind of process. So they don't want to start a task that's going to take them 20 minutes if they've only got 10 minutes, right? So you can explain to them sort of how long each of these things is going to take. And as they complete things, which will happen, of course, automatically, we're tracking what they're doing. You'll see that we actually mark, let me get back to my dashboard here. You'll see that we actually mark steps off that they've completed, right? We'll fill up the progress bar. You can see this is a very short task, and so we've only filled up a little bit of the progress bar. But if they finish a task that maybe takes half an hour, shall we say, then more of the progress bar would increment. And one of the things, importantly, that I want to point out is that you're totally in control of what the tasks are that you're presenting to your students, in what order they're occurring, where they're pointing, right? You can put a lot of information in MyPath if you want to. You can create informational pages very easily. You can put images, embed videos, and all those things can be done by school personnel that do not have technical training, right? The idea was that anybody should be able to come in and stand up a page without being, an IT staff member. And then basically publish them for your students to then go through when they finish the application. Obviously, if our goal is to make sure that students stay engaged in the process to progress to that enrollment, we also want to empower you with a bunch of retention tools. And so you can set up automated reminders that will reach out to students and say, hey, we noticed that you finished some tasks yesterday. You haven't finished everything. So why don't you come back to MyPath and go on to the next step that your college has defined. And you can easily toggle those on for your students. And they'll be distributed to students by way of either the student's email, or actually they can be text messaged to the student as well. And all of that, of course, is free with the product. Lastly, I want to mention to you that we know that an onboarding experience is not a one-size-fits-all process. Each student will benefit from different kinds of information being given to them, especially students who need certain types of student services to be successful. And so MyPath has a pretty deep integration with CCC Apply, where you can actually write rules that will reference information that the student has given to us in their application. So we get their application data instantly when they submit it. And you can say things like, hey, for veterans, I actually don't want the first step to be orientation. I want it to be read about veteran services at my campus. And I want them to watch this video. And then I want to text message them a note about a workshop that we're hosting on campus, in the next week or so, maybe. And then those are a specific set of rules and experiences that only my veteran students will see, because we know that while it's very beneficial, obviously, for a veteran student to get this wealth of information about what's available to them, it would equally waste the time of students who don't need that information. And so we don't want to take up a bunch of real estate, explaining veteran services to students who don't need that kind of information. So you can create sort of a just-in-time style onboarding process that is linked to your application, that will dynamically reform itself based on who the student is. And then you can keep them engaged in the process by way of automated reminders, text messages, emails, things like that, all of which can be administered and set up very easily by non-IT staff. So I'm going to stop here and make sure that we leave time for other folks to go through their portions of the presentation. But I do want to say that we can do a much more in-depth version of this presentation with your colleges individually, if you would like us to do that. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Tell us that your college is interested. We'll set up a call with whatever staff you would like to bring, and then we can have a sort of one-on-one call where we answer any questions, show more of the product, all those kinds of things. So that'll do it for me. And Q, I guess I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Let's go ahead and turn it over to David Williams from MZ, who's going to be sharing a little bit about Career Coach. And before we turn it over to him, I just want to let you know we already have a question in the chat box, but if you have any questions about Mike's portion of the presentation, make sure you use the chat box to go ahead and ask those. We'll be answering those at the Q&A portion. David, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Q, and thanks everyone for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today about Career Coach and how it fits in with MyPath, and how it can bring value to the application and enrollment process at your college. So my name's Dave. I've been with MZ for quite a long time. I've got my screen shared here now. Wanted to show you a little bit about who we are, and then we'll dive into MyPath and Career Coach's portion of that. So MZ at the core of it is a labor market data and analytics firm, and we use that data to advise private industry, higher education, students themselves in what sorts of decisions to make about related to human resources, related to programs, related to career-altering decisions. So we have many different constituents and stakeholders that make use of our data, but the common denominator is the employment data, the labor market data that underpins everything we do. And we work with many individual institutions in the state of California. Of the 100 and so institutions, we work with a sizable number already that have an individually branded Career Coach site. And we're very privileged to work with the Chancellor's office to bring Career Coach via MyPath to all the institutions in the state of California. And I should take this opportunity to mention that a career coach as a part of MyPath is totally free. It's built in into the platform, and there is no additional cost whatsoever for career coach that you all elect to access via MyPath. So it's a common question. There is no additional cost. I wanted to make sure and jump on that first thing. So as Mike mentioned, there's a massive drop off from potential students who submitted applications to those who actually managed to pull through and enroll. And it's MZ's position that a big part of the problem is a potential student might not have the right sort of goal framed in their mind at the outset of their life as a student. Why am I here? Why am I investing, money in an education? Why would I need to do something like that? Well, our labor market data will go a long ways to helping them form a goal to frame the decision as to why they're enrolling in your institution. We can help them come to that point of decision very quickly by providing data at the outset of their life cycle as a student, so that they can, one, be confident in their decision to enroll at an institution, and two, have a firm goal in mind that will allow them and help them and support them to persist all the way through their education. So we're providing statistics on labor market trends, jobs, wages, potential employers, job postings, and the like, that will help them, again, articulate a very clear picture in their mind of the destination or where they want to end up once they're done with their education. So with that in mind, I'm gonna dive into the part of MyPath here that career coach is sort of embedded within, and that's this first item here, explore careers. And any of these links that you click on once you dive into explore careers will automatically take you over to the career coach website, which looks like this. Now there are many different there are many different backgrounds and personas of users that will enter career coach, and so there are many different starting points that folks will start at. And so we're just going to choose one or two of those today by way of a demonstration of how the product works. So first of all, I want to point out there are three main sections here on the home page. There's a career assessment piece, which we'll get to here in a bit, and then there's a keyword search for both careers and programs. So if I'm a student in a particular locale in California, and I'm interested in becoming, let's say, a dental assistant, I can go ahead and keyword search for that particular career to get more data on it. So I'm just going to type that into the search bar here, and it's going to bring up all of the careers that most closely match the terms that I search for. In this case, I did an exact match. I have dental assistants, and you can see when you do that, there are some summary data points to look at. There's the average annual wage for that particular career, as well as the typical level of education required to be a dental assistant. Now, I can click on that career and immediately get more detail on that particular career, not only the wage and the education data that we saw there on the summary page, but more importantly, and this is really where the meat of Career Coach exists, is the all-important link between the career and the program that, if someone completes, will put that person in a position to go attain this career. So if we have a student who decides to enroll in said program, they will then ostensibly be prepared to enter a career as a dental assistant. So one thing to note here, it's sort of a neat enhancement that we've made in the last 6 months. Remember that we're a student right now that's using Career Coach, and as I understand it, there's an identifier, an MIS code for every student that uses Career Coach, and the product is smart enough to recognize that MIS code and tie that MIS code back to the college that it is synced with and the region that it comes from. So a lot of questions that we'll get when looking at these linkages between careers and programs is, well, how do I make sure that my programs end up near the top of the list? Or how do I make sure that my students, if they're using Career Coach, can actually find programs associated with our institution? The MIS code allows us to identify the institution that the student is coming from, and we will automatically sort that institution to the top of the list of programs here. So we have various levels of achievement for dental assistants and various programs that apply to it. And you can see there's an alphabetical listing of all the institutions that are offering that program. And if I was an actual student coming from an actual institution, say from Santa Rosa, under dental assisting, the certificate of achievement, if Santa Rosa was indeed offering this program, that institution would be sorted to the top of the list, and that student could immediately click on that and go to more information and find more information about that program. Additionally, data is only good insofar as you understand the context for the data. And in this case, we are able to understand where the user is originating from, so that we can automatically associate that user with the region that they are associated with, so that the data will be regionally connected to wherever that student is originating from, the institution that student is originating from. So for an institution located in the greater Sacramento area, if we have a student that is coming from there and that originates from Santa Rosa, we will automatically control all of the data they see and attach it to the greater Sacramento area. And of course, the data will change based on the region it is that you're looking at. Now, let's dive in a little bit to the data here and get more down into the weeds as to what it is we're talking about. So we have an overview page about dental assistants that gives us the wage. It gives us some demand information. So we, using a host of data sources, we estimate the number of job openings on an annual basis for dental assistants within this particular geography. And we have about 7,200 in the greater Sacramento area. Now, there are tabs above that allow you to drill in and find more detail about dental assistants. For example, what are the daily tasks required of dental assistants? And what is the national educational attainment picture for dental assistants? There are going to be a pretty wide swath of folks that are dental assistants and that have attained various levels of education. In this case, you can see that the predominant, the lion's share of folks employed within this job have attained a certificate, no more or no less. But remember, this is a national figure. This is not regional. This is not for the greater Sacramento area. This is a national picture. And then we can continue to move on and take a look at the wage curve. So we understand at what a dental assistant might make at the entry level versus what an experienced dental assistant with many years of experience and tenure, what they might make once they have that experience, and when they have that tenure and that seniority under their belt, what can they be expected to make? So we can see what the wage progression is for that particular career. And then finally, we strive to give you all a picture of what the employment outlook is for dental assistants in this particular geography. So we provide a 2-year graph that illustrates the activity of job postings. So this shows you how hard employers in the greater Sacramento area are trying to hire dental assistants. So you can see that trend over time, see where it's gained and where it's dipped, where there have been more dental assistants needed and where there have been less. And then as well as companies that are representing the lion's share of the postings activity. In this case, we have a few, one in particular that's dominating the job postings activity. And if you are a student, this would give you an idea of, upon completing your certificate, where you might be looking to find a job. And then lastly, we have an overall employment projection that should give you an idea of the outlook for the outlook for dental assistants over the next 10 years. So we have an econometric model that will allow us to project out into the future the outlook for this particular occupation. If you're about to invest a year or 2 years in a program and in education, you want to rest assured and be confident in the fact that this career does in fact have a future, and that you, in 5 years from now, you don't find yourself in the same place looking to find a new career. So we try and provide a robust, comprehensive look for the student to help them make the decision as to whether or not this is the career for them. I'm going to go back to the home page, and I also wanted to point out there is a similar search bar that allows a student to search for programs if they're enrolled in a program already at a given institution and they want to begin to understand a little bit more what sort of careers they have at their fingertips once they achieve once they've finished and persisted in their education. They can search for those programs using the keyword search here on the home page. Lastly, I wanted to take you all through the assessment piece, which I'll click on here. And let's go, and it is, I think it's remembering my old results. And it might not let me, oh, okay, good. It's allowing me to go back to the beginning. There are, in fact, two different assessments that a student can choose to take, both of which are based on the John Holland Code. So there are two assessments. There's a 6-question and a 60-question, and you can imagine most people choose the 6-question assessment. And just FYI, the 60-question assessment takes less than 3 minutes to complete, but in the interest of time today, we'll use the 6-question assessment as our example, and it takes you through a series of questions. So, do I like to work with my hands, build stuff, or fix things? I think my wife could answer that. No, it's not that I don't like to, it's that I'm just not very good at it. So I'm going to disagree with that. Do I like to solve problems and problem solve and try and figure things out? I'll agree with that. I am not a creative person, so I'm going to strongly disagree with expressing my ideas through art, music, theater, film, or writing. Do I like to advise, coach, or teach? Well, I'm walking you all through a demo of Career Coach, so I'm going to strongly agree with that. And I do enjoy persuading, convincing, and influencing people, so I'm going to agree with that. But I don't like to plan activities. I like to participate in them. I like to participate in someone else's hard work, so I'm going to say I disagree with that. And then the level of education that I'm hoping to attain, I want to do an associate's degree. So at the end of that, we receive our top 3 traits: social, enterprising, investigative, and then the top career matches. Now, this is a genus and species structure. So we start out with a career pathway. This is a very broad career category that we can then drill in on. So I can see the ones that I am most suited for based on the results of my assessment, and then I can drill in with progressively more detail down to the career that I'm interested in. So I'm going to choose health science. And there, again, we can dive in and see more detail as we go. I want to look at diagnosis and treatment. And with that, I'm going to see a list of careers within that particular category: health and science, diagnosing, and then down to the actual careers with actual data that map to that particular category. Now, remember, the assessment results based on the answers to my question to those questions, my answers to those questions are what is driving me to these particular careers. So if you have a student who is unsure as to which program they ought to be enrolling in, the assessment can go a long ways in helping them target which career to pursue, and therefore through the mapping across from the career to the program, what programs they ought to enroll in. And I think I've more than used up my allotment of time. So Q, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, David. So we did have some questions in our chat function that I'll go ahead and have us go through. Let's see. The first question, I believe Mike answered in the chat box, but for those of you who don't have access to chat, I'll go ahead and re-ask it. And then Mike, if you wouldn't mind providing your answer. The number that you gave, the 71% of applicants who never enroll, is that number derived from the total number of applicants?
It's derived from the total number of electronic applications that come in via CCC Apply, so the ones that are successfully submitted. And then I don't know the full extent of the details of the process, but I do know that that team has done a lot of work to filter that number for bogus, invalid, and bad faith applications. So, bot users just looking to get an EDU email address to try to get like free Microsoft Office, which I know some colleges offer, things of that nature. So the team has done a lot to sort of filter out those applications from the total data point. So that is as best as we can tell, that's 71% of real actual students who are intending to go to college, not including, that number does not include sort of fake or bad applications.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And I believe that answers as Sandy's question, at least is with the information that we have. She had a question about how we factor in the institution's employees, apply, never attended, so on and so forth. I believe you answered that question as well. So let's go ahead and move on to Jacob has a couple of questions. He first asks, who will be providing LMI data to post on the college screen/web page? How often will the LMI data be updated? So David, I believe that's asking about Career Coach. So would you mind tackling that question?
Sure. So we will be providing the LMI. So that will be coming from MZ, and our data is updated on a quarterly basis. So we would, that's just a part of our data process that happens behind the scenes, and any data that any student or any college accesses through Career Coach via MyPath will be updated 4 times a year. So it's refreshed as often as the data sources that flow into our master data set, as often as they are updated. There's a bit of lag time, but as soon as enough of them are refreshed and ready to go, we update them. And we've just got that down to a regular rhythm and drumbeat of 4 data updates, data refreshes per year.
Thank you. And it looks like, David, that Jacob has 2 more questions for you. So the next question he asked was, regarding the job workforce opportunities for students that complete a certificate or degree, how are viable employers being sought out and align appropriately with academic disciplines?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we've done is we have I'm trying to think of the best word for this, but a set of linkages that allow us to move from an employer to an academic discipline. So much like the linkages that occur between careers and programs. So that connection between, well, this program trains for these careers and this career can be trained for by these programs, that relationship that exists between those two, we do multiples of those linkages. So if I can sort of draw a straight line from point A to point B, how do we get from the employer to the academic discipline? We have the employer who is generating job posting activity. So we know the jobs or careers that an employer is either asking for or already employs through our labor market data. So that's the first linkage. So we understand the jobs that an employer is interested in or posting about is being active on the web with job postings. That we then make the transition or the connection from the career to the program or the academic discipline that would train for that particular career. And there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make that happen. I don't want to make light of it. It's a very complicated process, and this is a very oversimplified explanation of it. But that's essentially the flow of information that allows us to get from an employer to an academic discipline.
Great. And then he also has a follow-up question. How are job postings through this tool different from web-based services that are not connected to any particular college?
That's a good one. There are other services out there that do this sort of thing, and it's really tough given the volume of job postings that we're talking about. There's over 100 million data points for us to sift through, and so to compare too much is like comparing apples and oranges. I will say that there are, in my experiences working with colleges, there seems to be a regional bent to the job posting activity that you'll find elsewhere. And there's also a major difference between how you're able to what we call deduplicate job postings. So, for example, you may have we'll take a McDonald's that has one managerial position, but they post that managerial position 100 times in 100 different places. Well, that's not 100 different postings. That's not 100 different jobs. That's one job, right? So somehow we need to be able to be intelligent enough or smart enough to understand that that's in fact one job. So what makes us different is we've invested massively in our ability to accurately restate what jobs are in fact out there using job posting activity, and that's an extremely tricky process. So I would say that there are two major differences. One is our deduplication process is second to none. So we are just far more successful than most other services out there in accurately representing the job demand through job posting activity on the web. And then the second thing is we do this not just for one community or for this catchment area or this collection of counties. We're doing it for the entire state. We're doing it for the entire country. And so we're going to have a level of consistency, and we're going to have we're going to be able to standardize the way that people look at job postings that will make it apples to apples. So the job posting activity you see in the greater Sacramento area versus what you see in San Diego, it will be the same model, the same deduplication process, and it should yield a more consistent data set.
Excellent. Thank you, David. So I don't see any more questions in the chat box, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our closing. Just to let everyone know, once again, we will be posting this webinar within approximately 5 business days. We want to let you know that we have upcoming a follow-up webinar on Wednesday, September 19th at 2 p.m. You should be receiving a notification about that here in the next couple weeks. During that webinar, we'll be having a college who is currently implementing MyPath be on the line as well to join David and Mike to talk about their experience with implementing MyPath. However, if after viewing this presentation you're ready to sign up for or to implement MyPath at your college, please contact Keith Franco. His email address is listed right here, and he will be able to answer any questions you may have about the product. Also, we want to let you know about our user community, which is located at the website listed on the slide here. And then we also want to thank you once again for joining us today and give you our website, cccedplan.org. On that website, you'll not only be able to find the recording for this presentation, but also approximately 4 professional development modules, which take you through configuring your MyPath and setting that up through once it's been implemented at your college. So once again, thank you for joining us for the CCC MyPath webinar, and we wish you a good afternoon. Thank you.